these guys? I'm freeing all these guys. Let's see if if I need if that's how I get those buffs, because I really don't remember how to get those buffs. So let's see. Primal Intellect, Omnipotence. Oh wait. Well, shit. I beat the boss and didn't mean to. Yeah, I'm not showing in the live roll in MDG. There's a valid reason for that. What happens is I will switch off to a different game that I'm not actively streaming, and it doesn't like that. So just to show you what I'm doing in my other screen, since you can't see it, I'll just drag it over here. I'm doing this. And this is Aetolia. It's a text game. It's played in Mudlet. And technically you can also link this up to Discord. So you'll see me occasionally, even while I'm streaming, if you pay attention to the games I'm playing. One time it'll say World of Warcraft, and occasionally if I'm tabbed into the other window, it'll say I'm playing Aetolia, which is what this is. I'm logged in bashing up a newbie, getting him leveled up some. So I'm not even worried about showing us live in MTG right now. It does kind of look like hacking stuff. I mean, this is an old school game. This is a text-based multiplayer game. Yeah, it's saying Mudlet right now. Okay. If you're a player of Mudlet as well, it'll go so far as to say what mud you're playing. So yeah, good times. Make sure my newbie's still here. Okay. Anyway, but this is old school. I've been playing Mud since 2001. I was at ECPI going to college for my first degree, and a friend of mine introduced me to them. I started playing in Achaea, which is another Iron Realm, or IRE as we refer to them, game. And then eventually I moved to this one when it opened up, and I've been playing it ever since. So I've been playing since 2001. And what you see here in Mudlet, this is my UI. What you're seeing me doing is I'm killing things. I'm actually summoning. I've actually got a bunch of triggers set up. I'm summoning elementals and automatically killing them. And that's me bashing up a newbie, taking him basically leveling, essentially. And he's actually trying to talk to me as if I'm paying attention. I even told him I'm AFK earlier, so he's a newbie, so he doesn't know that when I say I'm AFK, I literally mean I'm AFK. You just enjoy getting the free XP and leave me alone. But it's a role-playing game anyway. But you also have other aspects. So you have bashing, you have leveling that you can do. There's PvP and roleplay. I primarily play it for roleplay. It's a creative outlet. So it allows me to do a lot of text writing, of thinking creative ways to write, hey, this is a book. No, I'm describing the book as far as, it's leather bound and it's got this scratched into the leather and kind of how it's molded and getting into intricate details like that. So it's my creative text outlet for that sort of thing versus writing a book or something. If I compiled all my years, man, I'd have a book probably, like that thick, maybe more of stories from playing this game for so long. But besides that, it being that creative outlet, it's also a good stress relief because I do PvP. It's one of the few games that I do PvP in because I can code. It's coded in Lua, and I've got a lot of different scripts and everything. I work with several other people, and we all kind of code together and bounce ideas off of each other for the system for that stuff. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It takes some getting used to. It's not something everyone is going to want to play, obviously. But it's pretty awesome. It's one of the few things that has managed to keep my attention for 18 years now, basically. I have quit a few times for a few years here and there, for various reasons, like life thing happens and whatnot. But I have continued to play it. Now, bad thing is how you've got apps and stuff that are play to win kind of games or pay to win, where you buy upgrades to kind of have artifacts and all that sort of thing. This is actually the game system that functionality, that idea came from. So you can thank the creator of this mud, um, as also the creator of Pay to Win, basically. Um, so in order to play these games and kind of get pretty strong in them, there is some pay to win factors. But since I've been playing for so long, it kind of balances itself out for me. So it's not been like I've spent a ton of money on it, but I have spent money on it. Not gonna lie. Do I have one character on that? I actually right now actively have two characters. In this one, there are two sides to the game. It's kind of like having the Horde and the Alliance, but in this case, it's the Spirit and the Shadow. Spirit are basically your good guys, the people that are about the light, about, the living and all that. Then you've got the Shadow side, which is more your assassins, your people that dabble in shadow, which means, the darker way of life and everything. I play one, this is my primary character. I'm in the Archivist class, which is all on Shadow. And then I do have another character that I play occasionally, kind of piddle around with, which is on the Spirit side. But primarily I play this one. This character is what they call a Zorani, which is a basically a lizard person. And trying to think if there's anything else I can just kind of summarize that would make sense. My Spirit side is a human. I was not very creative. But we've got a variety of different races and classes and cities and organizations. And it's very player driven. There are gods and admin that help drive a lot of the way things go. But overall, there is a lot that is player driven, which helps kind of keep the attention, honestly, of people. That's why I think it's kept my attention for so long, is because it's so player driven, and I get a lot of interaction. I'm actually friends with a lot of these people because we've been playing together for so long. One of them lives here in Charlotte, in fact, and I've gone to dinner with him several times, or not dinner, but lunch with him several times, and we talk all the time and joke around. So yeah, it really is a fun, interesting way to bring people together, but is kind of you have you have to have a taste for it. But kind of to spin it, since I have it open right this second and I'm not working on anything and WoW, let's explain the basics of the game. So you've got the Spirit and the Shadow side. Each one has two organizations to them, city-wise. So I am part of Spine's Reach, which is kind of like a northern Russian sort of feel. That's kind of what it goes for. They're very heavy in drinking. The city is a big, sprawling outside city with spires, and they very much try to get into technology and that sort of thing. Then on our side of the tether, as we call it, so Shadow side, there's also another city called Bloodlock, which is... You should make a YouTube video explaining the game. I feel like no one knows about it. I probably could. That's not a bad idea. It'd be one way to advertise it. I may just go ahead and explain it now and use this as a snippet to put on YouTube later to explain it to people. But yeah, so back to it. So we have the Shadow Side Tether. There's Spine's Reach, which is, like I said, Russian people basically. Then there is Bloodlock, which is down south of us. It's kind of got a lot of irony around it. It's the city of vampires. There are vampires in this game, vampires and undead. But it's also it's a city about strength. That's kind of their focus. They are very much enslavers, that sort of thing. They really want to put everyone under their boot. The ironic part about it, because of the fact that they have vampires, they're built inside a volcano. So, yeah, that's... I always find that ironic that their city's built inside a volcano. And it's not really an active volcano, but goodness knows, who knows if the admin will ever use that as a thing. I mean, they might. You never know. So that's the Shadow side as far as the cities. Then you have the Spirit side. There's no neutral as far as a playable cities. They don't want neutrality, and I can't blame them. Neutrality in any of these kinds of games really makes you kind of boring in most cases. Neutrality is hard to do in these kinds of games because you usually have to choose a side in some way. So they don't even bother with neutrality. We've given it as an option as far as an organization to belong to. So then there's spirit side. There's Duran, or Duran, whatever way you want to pronounce it. It's your very basic druid city, basically. It's a big old tree, and people live in it. And they've kind of used the bottom of it, kind of hollowed it out to make the city inside, and you can actually go up levels of the tree and everything. It's connected to what we call Dendara, which is the kind of the animal spirit realm plane or whatever. There are planes, your different elemental planes for each of the elements, but there's also Dendara, which is life. So that tree is essentially tied to Dendara, which is the life plane, or animal plane, which is very kind of like the Emerald Dream, but it's connected to the actual city. So that's obviously what they protect. It's a very warm area zone-wise, very primal. There's a lot of fae and fae animal type spirits and everything. So it's very wild and just cool. I like Duran. I like the lore of it especially. I'm very big on lore, as you can tell with my gameplay of World of Warcraft. Other spirit tether city is going to be Enorian. And Enorian is in the southeast part. So there's Bloodlock to the southwest, kind of. There's Enorian to the southeast. And they are your praise the light people, praise the sun. They're very, very religious, very zealoty in some cases, depending on how extreme you go with it. It's a hot city on the ocean. They're really right on the ocean. And I don't know that there's too much more to explain about that besides just very for the light. Very, very spiritual and very much about everything good, really. Now, there are other organizations that are admin controlled that are going to be, our nemesises in some way or another. There's another entire landmass called Albedos, which is where the biggest amount of our technology comes from, because they're a little bit more advanced technology-wise than we are. We're kind of in a semi-medieval state, but a little bit beyond that. It's kind of hard to explain until you get into actually doing crafting and stuff. And it's very in-depth. The game is ridiculously in-depth, honestly. So there's Albedos. So that's where a lot of our enemies will sometimes come from, but not necessarily. The gods from that side will actually be the ones that we end up fighting most times, because we have trapped them. Or our gods trapped their gods on our land. But we don't have a lot of information on it. I do, because I have played an admin role as a volunteer a long time ago. So I kind of had seen what the story is supposed to be behind the scenes. But as a player, we don't really know exactly how this all happened. We just know that some of them are chained up. So that ends up being a lot of our conflict is related to the Albeti gods, and they are very Lovecraftian type gods. So they're very much like WoW's old gods in many ways. So there's a lot of comparisons to make there. And I'm trying to think. There is a couple of neutral organizations that you can't belong to. Esterport is kind of a port city where you can go do trading and stuff. I mean, there's a lot of different organizations in it. So is the story decided by the game or the users? That's a great question. It's a little bit of a mix. It depends. So the story itself started out with at a flat line and has been kind of shifted here and there over the years, because it started out as being a mirror game to Achaea, which was the original Iron Realm game. So we had a lot of the same land masses and everything, and didn't really have a lot of lore written for it. So over the years, it's really expanded, and that's why we have such an in-depth story to it, is because it's been 18 years of story writing, which has been both a combination of the admin, both volunteer and paid, writing the history of the game and the different organizations and stuff, and the players contributing. So as an example, one of our more recent events was a big war. where it was it was the chaos plane. The chaos entities were coming and attacking us, trying to take over, that sort of thing. And we had a lot of involvement with the god, one of the gods, and well, a couple of the gods doing a couple of different things. But they really allowed the players to drive what happened in certain events, and what happened in the events affected the end result of the storyline and kind of rewards and that sort of thing. So it does allow the admin to start. It's kind of like DMing. So you start with an idea, and then you let your characters affect what happens with that idea. And then you kind of, you're constantly, as a DM, kind of shifting them and being like, okay, well, this is a little bit more extra information you need to know about this going on. How do you proceed? How do you perceive that information and proceed? So it's the same thing. It's very, very much like playing Dungeons and Dragons multiplayer in a text-based game. Although the stories aren't nearly as often as you might have with Dungeons and Dragons, because obviously it takes a lot of work and coding, because it is still a game. It's still coded to do some of the different big items that we do as far as boss fights and that sort of thing. But it is very much just that similar idea. Being a dungeon master, they are the dungeon master and we are the the players, but we do have our part and they have their part. I hope that makes sense. And I really hope that I'm glad that you're finding this very interesting, Garlic, because I try to talk to my husband about this all the time and he just looks at me and just says, nerd. But then he also considers that he might want to play Dungeons and Dragons. I'm like, if you're not interested in my game in any sort of way, you would not have fun playing Dungeons and Dragons. He just wouldn't. Yeah, I think that summarizes everything at a basic level. Now, if I could start going into classes, if you're really considering playing, there are classes are associated with each of the tethers, although there are a few for PvP balancing purposes that are neutral. So I wonder if I can pull this up while I'm bashing. Help class list. Yeah. So we've got Archivist, which is Shadow, which is what I play. They deal with, as you can see here, that's their skills over here on the right-hand side. They've got geometrics, numerology, and bioessence. So they're kind of like doctors that play with shadow and shapes and psychic practices to do everything they do. And the class calling Archivist is literally kind of what the guild does. They collect information and knowledge and try to catalog it, that sort of thing. It's very, very librarian, but with a purpose to protect the world, essentially. But they are shadow tethered because they use any means to do things. That's what you really have to think of when you think of shadow. Is a lot of the time it's not them just being baddies. There's a lot of the time they will use any means to protect the main primary lands, the Aetolia, the land that sapiens, as we call it, the lands that we live on. So you can't really call us just evil. We're just, we're not willing to just, be strict, as the spirit side is. There's the Sendril. That is a spirit tethered class. That is a mage class. So as you can see here, they have Elemency, Arcanism, and I'm not going to pronounce it well because they just got a revamp actually of their skills. Them and Sciomancers both did, because they were mirror classes originally, and they still are, but they've at least split up a lot of the skills and made them much more unique. So thaumaturgy, something like that. Fire stuff. It's kind of the way to think of it. So they are more wizardy than they are mage now. So they have what's called a fulcrum that they can use to kind of help do some of their attacks, and they still have power over the majority of the elements. And they are spirit aligned because they are still, don't want to use shadow. They think shadow is bad. So that's why they're on the spirit side. Carnifex. Carnifex is going to be your Death Knight kind of class. I think that's the best way to call it. So you're going to have them use Savagery, Deathwell, and Warhound. So they basically summon or use souls to do attacks. And then they have Warhounds, big ass doggies, to do other things. So they're actually a really fun class. They are a venom based class. So that means when you're doing PvP, you do have to have a lot of venoms and that sort of thing to be able to get your enemy locked and stand in place and be able to get your kills. But overall, theme wise, they have a pretty fun theme. They are Shadow Side, and they are in Bloodlock currently because of the whole force strength and getting people under boot and that sort of thing. Indorani, that is a class that doesn't currently have a guild. they are actually, as far as the story of the game goes, they are actually a lore-wise bad guy. But they're a playable class now. What ended up happening, though, is at one point in one of the more recent events, they went against what the gods told them to. They literally were like, fuck what you said. We're going to do what we want. And yeah, their guild got disbanded because everyone was like, yeah, that was not smart. I mean, it made sense at the time for who was the leader of the guild and all that. And no one would have expected a guild to be just full on disbanded. It's not something that really happens very often. But player effect and player results, they did something stupid, and it made sense with the storyline for them to have their guild disbanded and just seen as the true baddies that they are. So that class deals with necromancy, tarot, and domination. Necromancy is what it sounds like. Tarot is tarot cards, using those for different attacks. And the domination, it's not what it sounds like. It is basically you go to the chaos plane, which is where all demonic entities are, and you do pacts, which you can do in either, lifeblood kind of thing, or you can do a pact in gold. And you basically have an alliance with that entity to be able to get miniature versions of them to come help you fight. That's that class. And it's obviously Shadow Side, mostly aligned to Bloodlock. But yeah, they in the lore of the game, they are very much have been baddies for a lot of things. Hey, if something goes wrong, blame it on the Indorani. It's kind of how it's gone. Luminary. Luminary is part of the Illumini Guild. That is a guild that's got two classes in it, actually. Spirit Side, they use spirituality, devotion, and illumination. Spirituality and devotion all kind of sound like what they are. Illumination is a fire set of abilities. So they are basically your typical priest, but with fire. Yay, fire. I'm telling you, zealots. That's really what you think about when you think about Enorian, and they are an Enorian guild and class mostly. Now the next two are neutral classes. We have Shapeshifter and we have Monk. Shapeshifter are going to be any number of types of races of them, but they are your shapeshifting classes, so our races. So they're going to be your werewolves, your wereboars, wereravens, werebears, werecrocodiles. I think that's it. I don't think we got into werecats yet. I think that's going to be a thing eventually, but it isn't yet. But basically, the class itself, each of those races have their own unique abilities and flares kind of to them. But as a whole, they are what you expect. Shapeshifters. They shift, they bite, they maul, they meh. They're as werewolfy as you can expect. So they are a neutral class. Anyone can get them. Actually, it's pretty handy. It's one of those classes that as long as you've learned another one, you basically get free skills when you switch into it. It's kind of fun, but that takes other explanations we're not going to get into. Next neutral one is Monk, which is exactly what it sounds like. So your typical punchy, kicky, telepathy class. Praenomen is what we call vampires. So that's the next class there. That is not a neutral class. That is Shadow Side, and that's your vampires. Sciomancer, that is also going to be Shadow Side, and that's the opposite of a Central. And they decided basically they don't want any of the other elements, so they're all Shadow. They make singularities that they have follow them around. They deal with gravitation, so shoving you down onto the ground and all sorts of fun stuff like that. Let's see. Sentinel is your typical kind of long weapon wielding animal following you around race or class. So it's not druidy, it's more your hunters, I guess you could say, kind of a huntery type class. So you have, your Durav for your weapon. That's what it's called. It's called a Durav. Ward, lore, and tracking, which is going to be traps and your different animals you can have. And that is spirit side, primarily in Duran, as you would expect from my previous explanation. Shaman, which is going to be your druid type class. Got primalities, shamanism, and naturalism. So it's basically you kind of keep an overgrowth of very vibrant green plant life at your feet, which allows you to do different abilities. You carry a quarterstaff, which allows you to do different abilities as well, summoning lightning and all sorts of things like that. And then you also have pacts of your own, much like the Andorani class, but you have pacts with the different spirit entities on Dendara. So you have them with animal spirits, and you can summon them, and that's pretty fun. And yeah, this is all in text. Then there's the next neutral class, and this is going to be one of the last ones. We have one more neutral class after this. So Cizin is your typical assassin class. So they are stealthy. They can actually go into phase, which means they're not able to be seen by the naked eye, and they can actually fight you initially that way. That they can be taken out of phase. But they have wormholes that they can pop through on different sides of the planet, and all sorts of fun stuff like that. So hypnosis. I have several people that play them just to be able to RP, being able to hypnotize people. It's to each their own. Templar, that is your knight class on the spirit side. So that's your typical knights, wielding weapons and shields and, being all spiritually and knighty. There's not really a great other description about that besides that there's a spirit side version of the Carnifex. Without Warhounds, they don't get a pet. They just get to be awesome and spiritual. Terradrim. Terradrim is actually a really fun class. They are the opposites of the shamans. You have to notice that in some cases, there are a lot of classes that are kind of opposing to each other, just for PvP balance, but also for lore balance. So you have the shamans that will be able to summon that overgrowth of plant life that I was talking about. Well, Terradrim are very much about earth. So they can summon sand, and they can actually destroy that overgrowth, and they're very much about wanting the earth to be at its natural state, which is basically dead without plant life in it. They protect another plane, the plane of earth. They obviously, like I said, use sand for their abilities, and they can make their own clay golem and have that to help them with fighting. And I think that's about it for them. Let me see. Is there ink or something I could get to grant me night sight? Anyway, sorry. Guys, I'm trying to make sure to also keep an eye out for his questions. So that's Terradrim, is earth fighters. I like Terradrim. You get a flail and you smack sand and earth around at people. It's pretty fun. Last of the neutral classes, Wayfarer. This is one of the newer ones that came out a few years ago. They are one that has no city association. They actually come from Albedos. And they are kind of trying to think of a good. They're like a warrior kind of class. They have axes and they throw them at people. So kind of a warrior-y feel to them. Kind of a piratey thing to them too. It's in between warrior and pirate kind of class, I guess is what you could call them. That's why they're called Wayfarer. They're very, very much a piratey. Then there's the last one of the spirit side, which is Zealot, also the second class to go with the Illumini Guild, and they are fire monks. That is the best way to describe it. And yeah, pirates are super cool. So that's all the classes. They have their own. They have 3 skill sets to each class, which has different abilities and different defenses and all sorts of stuff like that. And each one has, weapons possibly they use. Some don't use weapons, armor. There's all sorts of things that you have to consider. And then besides just the guild skills that you get, there's also a bunch of normal skills that everybody gets that you can learn into that help you with being a little bit more tanky, resilient. but also give you just kind of QOL, quality of life abilities. I'm trying to think if there's anything else really to explain. Unless you want me to explain combat and all that. Which I probably could record later. Right now, I'm just bashing. I'm just doing normal PvE, essentially. But PvP is definitely a whole lot more, even more spammy than this, and I have to focus. And I don't think there's usually not much during my daytime, so I don't think that we'll see much, but I am kind of keeping an eye out. Basically, what will happen is there's contestations. Wow, you can test. This is not my day for speaking. Contest Lem, YLEM, which is basically a resource we have that we can kind of tap into. Ley lines, essentially. That's the main PvP focus during the daytime, is watching out for those to pop up and for us to go fight against each other for it. So what I check is I keep checking clan tells, which is a clan that I'm part of. I can go look at the text that's been discussed on it. Oh, I've been sitting there so long I just logged out of WoW. So I'm actually, let me go ahead and okay, it didn't log me out all the way. Anyway, so yeah, I'm checking here to see if anything's going on. I looked earlier, there's nothing really going on. But I also will have over here in this top right, see where all these different, this is kind of my tracking of conversations and everything. I will also have notifications when things happen with the ley lines. So I haven't seen any of those yet. That's what this line is here. This a palpitating tremor resonates, blah, 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 blah. I've been looking for that to pop up again, and there hasn't been anything. So, yeah, when that happens, maybe I'll go out and see if I can get that and go PvP. All the rest of these notifications are either people talking to me or people logging in and that sort of thing. I play this every day, yes. I play this, I'm not as addicted as I once was. But I do play this every day for the majority of the day it's running. And I'm usually just leave it running because I'm either AFK, well, not AFK. I'm idle bashing, as we call it, which means just letting the system run and go kill things while I'm still monitoring it, but it just goes and does its own thing in my other screen so I can keep gaining experience, because you can get up to endless levels, basically, and I'm only level almost 130 now, I think. Let me see. Yeah, almost level 130. And you want to get to 200 eventually. There's only one person that's ever got to 200. I want to do it eventually just so you can get a special end game race and so many reasons. So I let that run. And then I also look for people to log in and I go have conversations with them while I'm playing WoW and other things. So sometimes I'll get distracted while I'm streaming and be like, oh, 1 second, someone logged in, because I'm going to go talk to them. And it is an easy game to have on while working. Usually it confuses the fuck out of people when you're working. I luckily work from home. So it doesn't matter if I'm playing from anyway. No one's really giving a damn. But when I've worked in offices and I've had this running either in this system or I can play it in the web browser, because obviously it's just text-based. I've even played it in Telnet before because I was bored enough. If you don't know what Telnet is, I'll try. I could try to explain it, but it's not worth it. Most likely, it's just, let's just say it's old technology. But yeah, most of the time when they see it, they're like, "What is that? What are you doing?" It's like, I'm playing a text-based game. They're like, "Are you allowed to do that?" I'm like, "Not really." Does anyone know that I'm doing it? No, because they have no idea what it is. So it's the main reason why I would play during the day, though, if I'm working in an office where they don't necessarily know what it is but don't want you to be on the internet, is because it uses very little bandwidth and I could go talk to people. It's basically like having a nice chat server up all day. Like I said, I'm friends with a lot of these people, been playing with them for a long time, so it's nice to just have people to talk to during the day. Anyway, so text game aside, it actually, what it would look like, just so you know, without a system on, let's go just choose, maybe Achaea doesn't have a system on it. I don't think I have one on there. No, this is more what it would look like without my UI and all that. Ooh, if I use the right password, maybe. I don't play this one either, by the way. So that's the list of how many people are logged into this one, by the way. There are 76 people logged in right now into that one. This is where I'm located. That's my little text-based map, so I can see where I'm located. This is in the city of Cyrene. And yeah, I don't have a city. These people here in this blue color, these are people that are in my room currently. So there are 3 other people in this room. It's kind of, you see their full names here with their titles. You can see some of them are wielding equipment. You can see some of them are have special other lines with them. So like concealed beneath the raised hood of a hooded cloak and all this other kind of flare things. All this other color here that I'm highlighting, those are either the weather, or it could be items in the room. So it could be info here. There are, let's see, 25 objects in the room. So I can see all the different things that are here. I can go in here and probe these things or take a look at them and see what they look like, and interact with them, find out how to interact with them. So this is literally what it looks like when you don't have a UI. Now the web browser, which I can pull my web browser over real quick. Right now you see it says there's only 2, you see only when I do QW here, which is quick who, it only shows 2 people here. There are actually 34 people online. I'm just on a different plane of existence, so I don't see actively the other 32 people. All right, so let's go ahead and pull up right here. I'm gonna go pull up Aetolia's website, which is the one that I play. And I can go click on play now. And I'll just do this for a second. Hopefully the admin won't notice and fuss at me. You're not supposed to multiplay. You can't play 2 characters at the same time. So this is what the web version, hey, I QQ'd. QQ, thank you. This is what the web version looks like. And this is, I don't think this is Java based. I don't remember what this is based. It may be HTML5. I can't remember. Yeah, but I don't want to stay logged in because I don't want the admin to fuss at me. Do a lot of people AFK like me? Yes, they really do. People will literally leave themselves on 24/7 and just have the thing running. And the reason why they do that is often so that they can do things involving some of the promos. So like right now we've got a promo going on where we can spin a wheel for free after we've been logged in for an hour, from whenever the timer resets for each day. So people will just leave themselves on. There are other ones that will basically allow you to get a prize throughout the day, just randomly. That's usually around Christmas time when that one happens. Sometimes they just like to leave themselves logged in so they can kind of keep track of people's conversations and see, you know, what they might have missed while they weren't logged in. There's a variety of reasons why people do that. Usually they're not doing anything though. They just kind of leave themselves logged in. Some people are just lazy and like to leave it on. I will say that my friend here in Charlotte with me, Mazian is his player name. He does that all the time. He's also like me, logs in at work and everything, but he does leave himself on pretty much 24/7 unless he crashes or his computer crashes or something. Just because there's not much reason to shut it down in a lot of cases, because especially if you can hide yourself and people don't know that you're on. It's not that they're going to be bothering you. I can't do that, however. I am very visible, and I have a lot of people that try to talk to me, so I don't want to seem rude, so I try not to be on too AFK-ish, like especially overnight AFK-ish, so that people aren't trying to converse with me when I'm AFK. And can people just come up and PvP you? Abso-fucking-lutely. The game, unless you have a hidey hole, you know, a hiding spot, then if you're out in the open, if a person just wants to kill you, they can. Now, technically, according to like PvP rules, you only get one of those random kills on somebody. You can't really just kill somebody to kill somebody. But if you were the target of somebody, let's say like this player right now, Galadriel. Yeah, his name is Galadriel and he's a guy. He's done some stupid things, some very stupid things, and has made himself very much a target of the other side. And he's been having to PvP a lot. If he were to go sit outside somewhere AFK, he would probably have like 10 different people after him at all times, at least. And they all have cause. They all have a reason to go after him, unfortunately. What's the punishment for dying? That's a good question. It depends on the way you die. If you die during the foci or the ley line battles that I was talking about, you actually don't lose any XP. You just have to go through a couple of death lines, basically. Oh, let me see. Am I out of globes? Globe. Nope. Let's see how many drains I've got left. Globe. I've got... Still has 3 more drains on it. Jeez. Alright, keep going. Anyway, let's not even go into what I'm doing here. But when you die, when you're doing the ley line type thing, you don't lose XP. You do gain XP for killing other players, but you don't lose any. But you do have to go through the death sequence. So it's basically you get, about, I'd say it's probably 30 seconds, roughly, of different, lines throughout the death sequence. And you just have to wait it out. So it makes it so that you can't go, immediately be resurrected and go back. Now, there is reviving abilities that other people can use on you, so you could do that technically. You could be revived pretty easily. Now, if you die in PvE, you do lose experience. For every single one of those ticks, like I was talking about where I said there's a text line through the death sequence, you lose a little bit of XP. It's, I can't remember if it was percentage-based or not anymore, but it is more detrimental the higher the level you are, compared to when you're lower level after you hit 100. There's a whole formula and stuff that they have for it. But you definitely do lose XP from PvE. Now, just like with PvP, the revive abilities, they can be used on PvE deaths as well. Now, bad thing for being a vampire, you can't be revived. So they just lose XP. They don't lose as much, though, because of the fact that they're vampires. They don't actually go through a death sequence, but they do have to reform their body, basically. So it does make it so they have to take time to get back up, but they don't necessarily lose as much XP because of the fact that they can't be revived. But yeah, so there's a whole bunch of considerations there. But most times, the XP loss is not so terrible that you can't make it up pretty easily. And PvP is definitely the best way to get experience, or the most beneficial way to get experience, because you get a lot from killing other players. Normal bashing, you don't get nearly as much, but there are ways with promos and buying things for you to buy bonus experience stuff so that you can level up faster and all that. So anyway, I know there's a lot to consider. There's a lot of things that go on with these games. But do you have any other questions, since I'm already deep in the water with it right now? I mean, there's nothing I can't answer, honestly. If you even want to ask me any weird questions like, hey, what kind of role-playing do you do? I guess I could go into that. And that makes it sound really terrible when you say it that way, but you know what people do if you're a WoW player, what they do in Westfall, and other people do in these games. People will do the same thing but in text. Yeah. That's called mud sex. That's a thing. It could be an interesting thing, but it is a thing. There are people that solely create new characters that just want to do that, and you can tell exactly who they are. The RP and VR chat is out of line. I could imagine. I really could imagine. That's part of why I get shied off from doing VR chat stuff. I'm just like, I get enough of the weirdos from the text game that I don't know that I want to also get it from VR. But most of the roleplay I do is actually just related to the lore of my city, my class, if I'm following a divine, a god. My lizard lady was at one point recently trying to make a goal of becoming a true dragon, but that kind of fell through. So she's going to go back to what we call the warlord, which is basically a god that is about saving sapients, about keeping the realm safe. And she very much is about trying to gather information for her guild and all of that. So that's mostly what I try to stick to. But have I done the mud stuff? Of course. 18 years of playing, it's bound to happen. I don't think there's a single, well, no, I do know at least a couple of people that have never. And they are guys. Girls, it probably happens. I can't think of a single girl that I know that hasn't. But definitely, I can actually think of plenty of guys that haven't. And most of them, they play for the PvP aspect more than they do for the other aspects of the game. So they stick to their PvP and they don't really roleplay at all. Besides maybe telling someone, hey, you pissed me off. I'm going to kill you now. That kind of thing. My friend Mazian, he doesn't roleplay at all. He doesn't. I think he did a little bit a couple years ago. Mostly when there's events in the game and stuff, he'll do it. But normally, he and I, if we're talking to each other privately, it's completely out of character. It's like, hey, how's the kids? Did you get your yard work done? You know, those sorts of conversations. Pretty much what we do. We don't even bother to keep it in character at all. But that's also because we're old and lazy. He's slightly older than me. He's in his 40s. He's got kids. He's got a kid that's graduated high school and everything. I am only 35 pushing 36, so I'm not as old, but we're still both pretty old. I mean, you have to consider I started playing when I was 17 pushing 18. He wasn't too much older. I think he's probably 7 years older than me. So he was in his 20s, and yeah. And the RP adds to the experience, I'm sure. Do people have relationships in this? Absolutely, actually. Yeah, that's a big aspect for some people, is to have a role play relationship where they do even just the menial things together, where they're hanging out, you know, talking and cooking and going out and doing activities together, dates, all of that kind of stuff. People do that. Yeah, absolutely. Some people take relationships too seriously. Obviously, there's always going to be those people. And there are people that have a bad time or a hard time separating the game from themselves. So they get a little too obsessed with what's going on and kind of start thinking that, hey, this is real life. And I don't know how better to explain that besides to say it that way. Do guilds break up because of a bad breakup? Thankfully, no. They don't break up. The guilds don't. Most of the big organizations can't really break up necessarily unless the admin says so. So, luckily, if you have a bad breakup and you're both in the same guild, the organization itself is probably not going anywhere. But there can definitely be a lot of drama, and I've seen enough over the years. Internal conflict where they have a breakup and it goes badly, and it just kind of shits on everything, is the best way to say it. So it makes for a mess, and then the guild has to restart somewhere without those people, hopefully, and it'll be okay. And there's politics, so there's all sorts of drama outside of relationship drama. There's political drama, so you know, the typical types of things you might expect from politics. I do a lot of politics with my roleplay. I don't do it as much as I used to, but I always end up in roles of responsibility because people know who I am and how long I've been playing, so they just like, throw responsibility on her. She'll be good. So right now, the only responsibility I have is I am the guild leader of the archivists. But it's a very tiny guild. It's very, very inactive. There's only 2 or 3 of us actively playing in it. So there's not much to do, so I don't really care. But I have done city leadership at both just a lower level to the highest level possible. I've led divine orders. Obviously, I've been on the admin side, so I have played a god before, or 3 actually at the same time. So yeah, there's plenty of different things you can get involved in. It's kind of whatever floats your boat. It can happen. You want to go get that E-sex going on? Hey, go have at it. You want to go be a political back-scheming imp? Hey, go ahead, have at it. Imp is a race, by the way. We do have imps. We have a lot of races. Let's see. That's the one thing I didn't touch on. So we've got our I'm going to probably butcher some of the names, Arkesi. They are slimy but purified versions of the Nazatu. Nazatu are kind of corrupted human beings with very elongated faces and kind of creepy and willowy. Atavians are your bird people, so not really bird people necessarily, but at least they just have wings. Your typical humans with wings. Dwarves, which are dwarves. Grekt. They're bat people. Grook, which is your frog people. Human is human. Horkval is your bug people of some sort. Imp is imp. Kelki is your kind of fish people, is the best way to describe it. Kobold are actually dog-like. I made one as a joke that was a corgi, just to be fun. Mun are your Jewish humans, as we like to call them. Because the person that has done a lot of their lore has based it very heavily off of Judaism. So that's a thing. And that's something to say. A lot of what you find in the game has real life references. And some people take offense to that. Or think, oh, well, there can't be racism in this game. It's like, yeah, there's racism in real life. Why can't there be racism in a text game? Just make sure to throw that out there. So say Mun, a touch kind of on Nazatu. Ogre and orcs are exactly what they sound like, your typical ones there. Rajamala is your cat people. Troll is a troll. Tsola are your elven people. And then Zoran is the lizard race. Yeah, people are very bad with these text games sometimes, that they want that escape from real life and don't want to deal with the storyline consequences of there being, actual real life references to what's going on. So yeah, whenever it comes to racism or there being something really fucked up that happens, they're just like, hey, this shouldn't be happening in a game. It's like, why not? Happens in real life, happens in stories that people write. Why shouldn't it happen? Would you say there are Would I say that there are furries in this? Abso-freaking-lutely. I know specifically one that he is a self-proclaimed furry. He's told me as much. He plays a Zorani, but he's more of a snake-like Zorani. And he does it very specifically for the furry version of the snake people. So, yeah. Hey, the look. Yeah, I mean there's gonna be furries everywhere. There's furries. Furries is, to each their own. If people want to be a furry, I don't care. Live your life, whatever makes you happy. And welcome back, Keltide. We were talking about my text-based game, so you've missed me giving a lovely explainer to Garlic here about all the aspects of my text-based game that I pulled up and was showing what was going on. So we kind of got detoured from WoW for a little while there. I feel like it's probably been a good half hour of conversation just on my text-based game. And this is going to be a YouTube video. Yay! The Aetolia Explainer. Here's your synopsis. Ta-da! If you want to play. And if you ever do, we did really get on a detour. If you ever decide to play this, my character is Agothaxel, which is a mouthful, but feel free to just reach out to me. Reach out to me on Discord or whatever too, and I will level you up and kind of help you get started if you need help. I don't mind. So, moving back away from the text-based game now. How about that World of Warcraft? So, World of Warcraft, where did we leave off? I accidentally killed Hodir, or won the Hodir fight, I think. I was trying to get the one where you get the buffs, and I won it. I will say that the good thing about having a system, which is what you see, my UI and everything in my text game, the good thing about having that is that you don't have to type much. You just type much. You have to just remember aliases, key combinations, and that makes your life easier. I actually like walking, which you saw the map where it's got, the rooms kind of telling you where everything is. I use my number pad. That's how I walk around. So I'm very familiar with my number pad, just to do that to move around. PvP, I type in AUTO and press enter over and over and over again. I may have to do a little bit more than that, but that's most fights. I just do that. Bashing's all automated. So there's a lot of automation now, so it is substantially easier to play text-based games now than it used to be back in my early days. But if you're trying to do role play, if you're just sitting down doing role play, most people are super patient. They don't care how fast you type. They will just let you, take your time, go at your own speed, whatever. So you really don't have to worry about your typing speed anymore. It's not really a thing. So anyway. Typing a message to a friend real quick in that game, actually. And now we're going to carry on.